All right, hello people from the internet. Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The time has come for me to make another non-gameplay video for you once again. So here I am. Um, Today I am going to talk about pathing in crawl. And what I mean by this is not what we just saw, like how to explore. No, nothing like that. We're going to be talking about branch sequencing, about what branches I would do when, and so on. This is a video that was requested from me by Neil, who supports me on Patreon. You don't have to support me on Patreon to request videos from me, but I do have to admit that I am more likely to do them faster if it comes from a Patreon. So here we are making this video about pathing and where to go when. The very first thing that you have to do is do dungeon until either D11 to completion or until you see a skeletal warrior, because skeletal warriors are absolutely vile and disgusting early game monsters that are very difficult to deal with for almost all crawl characters. At that point in the game. So when you see a skeletal warrior, you need to abandon that level instantly. And if it's before the 11, first of all, that's kind of rough. Second of all, you can at least go to the 11 to try to get a bit of extra experience before having to do the next thing in my list, which would be Lair. Do I think that all characters unequivocally should go D11 into Lair? No. And this is my first deviation compared to the norm. With certain characters, most noticeably characters that are really strong at poison magic, aka characters that have a poison package, ignite poison, poisonous vapors, toxic radiance. With those characters, I like to do orc before Lair, especially if they also have willpower on top of the poison package. The reason why is because Lair is the land of fast poison resistant monsters that hit really hard and poison you. Um, so it is not uncommon for you to enter Lair, and the first monster that you see is a black mamba that you cannot really do a lot against if you're using the poison package. On the other hand, even the strongest threats of Orc are killable with the poison package, as long as you obviously do it carefully and you just don't tank their damage if they're capable of a strong damage output at the moment. So, for example, if you have an Etin in melee, you probably shouldn't try to poison it. If you have an Etin at the edge of the screen, however, you can probably easily kill it before it reaches you. That's the difference between the poison package in Orc and in Lair. In Lair, it doesn't matter if the Black Mamba is next to you or at the edge of the screen. You cannot hurt it anyway with your poison package, so I might as well go to the place where I can actually kill the monsters. Um, I do think that most characters should probably go do Lair before doing Orc. But there's an exception, and that's like the first thing that makes my pathing unique compared to other players' pathing. So you do Lair. I like to not do Lair 5 unless my character is really, really strong. Yeah, I like to leave it for after D15. You can get some strong stuff from Lair, but with the way that the game is nowadays, and especially with the way that Lair endings have been buffed in the last couple of versions, it's just really risky to try it unless your character really is super strong. And at which case, just go ahead and do that and whatever. Like, if it's really strong, you should probably be able to do things like that just fine. Um, but yeah, that is Lair. And after doing Lair with a normal character, I would just do Orc. With a character that starts with Orc, I would probably do Lair afterwards. The point of going Orc before Lair is to acquire the shops and a bit of extra experience that should hopefully get you the tools that you need to kill Lair without using the poison package. Because the poison package is very good in Lair, but there's some monsters like those fast poison resistant poisonous monsters and hydras that like it really doesn't do anything against. So you need an alternative damage output for Lair if you want to do that. After that, I'd like to do D15, and here comes another branching in my pathing with characters that have the following things: fire resistance, willpower, resistance to electricity, and a good source of damage output, both for the elves and for dancing weapons, like different things. Different spells kill those two kinds of monsters. On such a character, I would like to go do elf. Elf before Lair branch is, in my opinion, the characteristic almost exclusive to a really strong character. And I like to do elf before Lair branches because I think elf can be easier and safer than Lair branches. Lair branches are, in my opinion, one of the least pleasant parts of the game as they are nowadays. Like everything is just too dangerous, too difficult, open areas, lots of monsters that are faster than you. Yeah, all Lair branches are the worst Lair branch for a certain reason, and I guess I can talk about that a bit more in a bit. But let me just continue talking about Elf before Lair. Um, Elf before Lair branches works very well when you can have all of those things that I already mentioned. You need to play carefully, of course, but you get crazy reward at the end, the Elf 3 loot. You gotta be sure that you can take on that bolt. If you think that you can't, if you have even the slightest doubt, don't even try it. If you care about the time invested in your character, of course, because if you don't think you're gonna be able to do it, you're probably not gonna be able to do it, and you're gonna die. Um, so elf before Lair branches. Um, on the vast majority of characters, however, that is not gonna be a possibility. So you gotta make sure to do Lair branches, and this is what I was gonna be talking about. Every Lair branch, shoals, snake, spider, and swamp, can be the worst Lair branch for a certain kind of character. Let me go over all of the branches and let me tell you which branches you shouldn't do that, or like which characters you shouldn't do that branch on. Let's begin with Snake. Snake is the land of the monsters with shields and with strong ranged damage output from sharpshooters and spellcasters. There's also the rather nasty, what are they called? Guardian Serpents, yeah. Rather nasty Guardian Serpents. In my opinion, Guardian Serpents do one of the most unfair things that any monster does in Crawl, which is cast a spell at you that cannot be resisted in any way whatsoever, and just immediately surround you with a bunch of dudes that can constrict you, some of which are faster than you because anacondas are there. So what can happen is that you auto-explore, and you are suddenly surrounded by that I just mentioned. And then the next action is you getting constricted by the anaconda or something. And if you get lucky, you don't explode, and you have time to like react. But that almost always forces a scroll blinking out of you, only for the Guardian Serpent to do it again. Guardian Serpents are one of my least favorite monsters in all Crawl, precisely because that it feels deeply, deeply unfair and absolutely ridiculous, and I cannot believe that it's still in the game after so long. But anyway, you should not do Snake on characters that have only melee as their best thing. Why? Because Naga Warriors might. And a mighty Naga hits way harder than a normal Naga. If a normal Naga cannot deal damage to you, you can be sure that a mighty Naga can. Um, and it's only one, and it's the weakest enemy. So, like, obviously, Naga warriors are gonna deal more damage. Naga mages, Naga rajas, salamanders, and the salamander variants as well. So yeah, if your best way of killing things is melee, do not go there. Go elsewhere. Go to any of the other branches and try to get a way to kill things from afar. I would personally recommend javelins if you're a strong melee character, because the issue with the snake is, well, in addition to all of the things that I've already mentioned, a lot of snake denizens have shields. So if you try to throw normal stuff, they will block it and it will be miserable. If you try to melee, they will block it, it will be miserable, and they will constrict you and hit you really hard in retaliation. So don't do that. But if you have jabs, they cannot block jabs. Jabs actually work very well. There's also corridors. It's like the only branch that really has corridors, so you can actually line up a bunch of bands and throw a single jab for a lot of value, which might actually be enough for you to actually win the fight without having to spam jabs. Because at the end of the day, jabs are a limited resource, so you gotta use them in only special occasions. But I think Snake and its abundance of monsters with shields is absolutely a special occasion. Um, that's a Snake. Next on our list is gonna be Spider, the other poison branch. Spider is kind of the opposite of Snake. Spider is full of really nasty monsters. Man, is this guy gonna die to the ghost? If so, I'm sorry. Um, really nasty, fast monsters. Very difficult to fight one-on-one. All of the monsters are fast, so you cannot run away from them. There's no corridors, so you're likely gonna be surrounded. Some monsters even have ranged options. What kind of character should you not do Spider on? What kind of character is gonna find Spider the most impossible thing ever? Mages. Mages are gonna have a very bad time in Spider. Um, so why? Not only because of ghost mods. Ghost mods are like an extra spit on the face of any mage that tries to go do spider. Sometimes I don't even do spider for my normal three runes. I just do the other two Lair branches and I get bolts or something. Just because ghost mods are that annoying. But yeah, mages are generally not highly armored. They generally don't have like high levels of shields, so they cannot protect themselves from the crazy amount of attacks that come your way in Spider. Um, so it can be pretty difficult, not to mention the whole ghost moth thing already. Or again, mm, I wouldn't go spider with a mage unless it was a really, really powerful mage, or a mage that already had a statue form, or a mage that like a hybrid character, demigod or Chebriado's worshipper that is just wearing plate and is casting whatever it wants to cast. But at that point, you're not really a mage. You're more like a hybrid thing that is gonna be really strong, and you probably should be doing elf before Lair branches anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't do spider on a mage once again. This video was also partially inspired by a post that I saw on Reddit the other day about a dude who said that spider was the most difficult thing ever, and I was thinking, oh, this guy must probably only play mages. And I opened the post, and that's like the first thing that it says. I only play mages. So I was like, okay, there you go. Don't go to spider if you're a mage. As easy as that. What should you do if you want to go do spider? Well, you do the other branch, and then you come back with more robustness because, like, um, diminishing the amount of damage that the spiders do is so important if you want to do well in spider. Oh wow, this guy died. F. Why was there a Trident of Chaos dancing weapon anyway? Oh, it must be from the Ghost Bolt. Okay. So yeah, that's for spider. Next on our list we have swamp. Swamp is very difficult. Swamp monsters are, in my opinion, more powerful than other monsters, equivalent monsters in other Lair branches. But the upside is that there's less bands of monsters roaming swamp compared to the other branches that we have seen, and even shoals, which we haven't talked about. In Snake, you have salamander bands, snake bands, and naga bands. Like, those are really the three more noticeable things that spawn there. I guess also sharpshooter bands, but those are fortunately kind of rare. Um, in Spider, you have normal spider bands and broth mothers, and like really strong singular spider denizens, such as ghost moths, sun moths, emperor scorpions. So those spider actually kind of competes with swamp in this regard, but I think swamp has the strongest single monsters that spawn on their own. Bug bodies hit for a lot of damage. Um, there's also oh, the plants. The plants are pretty awful in swamp. The Shambling Mangrove and the Thorn Hunter are both the two most dangerous enemies that spawn there. Um, Fenstrider Witches can be really scary if you don't have poison resistance or willpower. Eleonoma, really scary if you don't have a lot of armor class. There's Will-O-Wisps, really scary if you don't have fire resistance. Ghouls, really scary if you're not robust, because they can hit pretty hard and they have a lot of HP, difficult to kill. Fortunately, pretty rare though. Tentacle Monstrosity, same as the Ghoul. Um, and Goliath frogs, which are able to hit you from afar with corrosion damage, not to mention the Spriggan bands. Fortunately, Spriggan bands are really the only bands that spawn there. And then the final level will have a lot of swamp dragons and hydras pretty much always. Um, so it seems impossible to properly prepare for swamp, right? Like, swamp checks everything. What do you do? Here's the answer. You play very carefully. You don't take fights against more than one enemy at a time. Even if you're not particularly resistant to one enemy at a time, you can still manage to overcome swamp as long as you play it carefully. Usually, when I die in swamp, it's because I got into fights with more than one thing at the same time. Um, if you are fighting, I don't know, a Spriggan band with a druid, and the druid does its ability that recalls things to just barely outside of your line of sight, that's pretty dangerous, and you should reconsider the fight at that point, no matter how much HP you have, because it's very easy for fights in Swamp to snowball out of control. So I think that you can do Swamp with almost any character, but you have to be really careful about it. You have to play it very, very careful. The more powerful your character is and the more resilient it is, the more careless you can afford to be in Swamp, the more kinds of monsters you can fight at the same time, and so on. That's how you do Swamp, in my opinion. And then the final one is Shoals. Shoals is full of fast bands of monsters that can hit you from afar pretty hard and net you, and flying monsters, and you're pretty much always gonna be surrounded out on sped. It's like Spider. It's very reminiscent of Spider. Um, so what would I do for Shoals, or what kind of character would I not do Shoals with? Mages, it's similar to Spider. If you cannot deal with fast monsters that surround you and hit you from afar, um, you really cannot do Shoals. Um, what would I tell you to do in order to do Shoals? Just get more experience, get ways to kill things faster. Ideally, if you're a mage, get spells that can hit the entirety of the screen or can hit from farther away, so that when you see a merfolk at the edge of the screen, you can just attack it while it's running at you, and hopefully kill it before it actually reaches you. Yeah, that's what I would recommend you to do. I think you could also reasonably get Cause Fear specifically because it's a spell that hits the whole screen, and merfolks don't have that much willpower, so you can actually fear them. It works. Satyrs and fawns are really annoying as well, so you really want willpower if you want to go do shoals. Also flying too, since the place is pretty much full of water. If you care about running away, you better have flying. Um, so so yeah, um, shoals is rough, but I would say that for certain characters, shoals can be pretty easy. Um, Characters that can hit the entirety of the screen at the same time, characters that can kill um, the merfolk really really easily. Those are characters that can take on shoals without a lot of complications. Um, so So yeah, that's it for the Lair branches. Obviously, slime should be the one that you do last, pretty much always. Um, I have had characters that do slime as my first rune, but it really is out of the ordinary to be able to do such a thing. Um, Anyway, so based on what I just said, you need to look at your character and decide which one of the four branches is the one that you can do, or well, which one of the two that you got is the one that you can do. After that, you get a rune and you can do bolts. Or if you feel powerful enough to do the other one, you just do the other Lair branch. But I almost always go do bolts. Bolts is risky and dangerous if you're susceptible to launchers, because Centaur Warrior bands and Yoctor bands are plentiful there. Those are, in my opinion, the greatest threat because they're so common. So if you're weak to the thing that's the most common thing in a branch, you're gonna be in pain. You also want cold resistance because of frost hearts, and you want willpower. There's a lot of bolt sentinels and wizards in there that can banish you. The bolt sentinels can mark you. You need a lot of willpower to resist that. You also want resistance to electricity because of thunder hooks. If you don't have any of those things, like it's still doable. You just have to be careful. In this game, I think you can win without any kind of resistance, but you have to be super careful. The weaker and more fragile you are, the more careful you have to be. The more likely you're gonna have to burn a consumable whenever things get rough, and eventually you will just run out of scrolls of blinking on like truly weak and fragile characters that have been completely ignored by the random number goth or the floor goth. So yeah, you gotta keep that in mind. After doing bolts, obviously you don't do bolts 5, you do bolts 1 through 4. The next thing that I would recommend is doing either the second Lair branch that you haven't done, or if you're powerful enough, you can do slime. At this point, you could also consider doing elf if you haven't done it already, or even depths. Like after doing all of those things, if you still don't feel ready to take on your third rune, whichever one that is, I would recommend you to do depths. Get a bit of extra experience. Hopefully, get some dragon armor. Hope for a Wizlab or a shop for you to get more loot, more experience. And at that point, like you should be knocking on 3 runes. Obviously for depths, like depths is almost the end of the game, so you at that point should already have like 1 pip of most resistances, and be wary of the monsters that you do not resist, of course. Be careful with the juggernauts always. Be careful with caustic strikes, even if you have the resistance to corrosion. They're really nasty. But yeah, like if you get to that point, you can definitely win. If you get to depths, you just have to play it very safe and very careful. Not waste consumables that you are gonna need in SOT in situations in depths. And if you really feel unsafe about depths, you can always dive it and just go straight to SOT. You're leaving behind a ton of experience. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but it is perfectly okay to do it because you don't really need to be experience level 27 in order to win the game. It sure is easier when you have extra experience, because extra experience not only means more levels in your skills, but it also means more HP. More HP means less likely to die. But yeah, anyway, after getting your 3 runes, the only thing left to do is to do SOT, unless you want to go for 4 runes or 15 runes, in which case, like, this wasn't really aimed towards discussing the pathing for extended. But I like to do first um, the vestibule of hell on certain characters, because certain characters could use the experience that you get from the vestibule of hell while also not finding it a very difficult fight. On certain characters, most noticeably mages or the Shining One worshippers. After doing that, I like to do Pandemonium. Then I like to go through the Horrors of the Abyss to get the Rune of the Abyss and then get out. Then I like to do a Ziggurat. This is with mages only. Then Tomb. Then do Hells in whichever order I think is going to be easiest, from easiest to hardest. Um, I do not do extended very often. I did an extended run this tournament, and after that, the last time I did extended was last tournament. So yeah, I don't really play extended very often, but if I was going for extended, that's how I would path. Um, Next thing is to pick up the orb and win the game. Yeah, that would be my pathing. I'm gonna leave a little thingy in the description, so like you don't have to listen to all of the video every time that you want to see the pathing, like in case you're a new player. But like I wanted to do the video anyway because I think that it helps a lot to understand something if you listen to the reasoning behind the decision that someone that understands it has, like listening to that reasoning can help a lot in understanding things in general, not only in crawl, and like it can help you reason things on your own and like make that kind of decisions on your own. It's pretty nice. That's why I included the part in the Lair branches thing where it's up to you to analyze your character and to realize, hey, I don't think that I can do this. Maybe I should go do the other one, and like just play it like that. Um, I guess I do have to say it is very rare, and I think that you should almost never do this. But there may be characters that cannot do any Lair branches and cannot do elf, but can maybe do depths. As I said, it's very rare. Like generally, if you can do depths, you can probably do elf as well, and you should probably do elf instead of doing depths because depths can be pretty dangerous, especially going in and just like immediately being surrounded. I hate it when my depths one is like that. Um, so yeah, but that is, I guess, also an option. It's just not an option that I would really recommend. Like if you need a pathing video, you probably are not ready to do depths before doing Lair branches or elf. Um, but anyway, I guess that's all that I have to say. Thank you for watching once again. I hope that you found this video useful. I hope that it was not annoying that for the large majority of the video we were staring at the screen of someone who was AFK. But like changing the window that I'm expectating on tiles is actually kind of complicated. If you've been watching for a while, you already know that I play console, I don't play tiles. So whenever I expectate in a janky way through a browser in my streaming program. So yeah, I've been trying to expectate some people, but some people seem to be AFK, and I try to click on the ones that are not AFK, and they like it really doesn't seem to be working very well. All of those appear as AFK. I'm not sure if they are actually AFK. But anyway, that's it for me. I guess that the next thing to do is to end the video. Yeah, thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day or night or whatever. And thank you to my supporters on Patreon: Anthony Emergence, Blink and Die, Dulos Ball, Inon, Grapophilia, Fede, Frog, Shaper, Merlin, Alistair, and Neil. I'm running out of space on this screen. I'm gonna have to make another one. Yeah, I'm gonna just like make the font smaller for the supporters so I can fit in more people. Anyway, I hope that there's more people in the future, and I still appreciate your contributions quite a lot. Um, Thank you for everything. I hope that you continue enjoying my content. See you around and have a nice rest of your day.